your turn.
Hello, everyone. All the meeting to order is August 17th. Now a little bit after 4:30. Did everyone have a chance to read and review the minutes from the July 20th meeting?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the July 20th, 2022 meeting.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right, strategic planning recap. All of the members of the FDPC, Trish and John, received the full strategic plan prepared by Carolyn Keller, Area 412. Our last meeting was last Sunday, August 7th, and it was a celebratory meeting to invite our volunteers, town council members, and our constituents, our regular volunteers, to share in the conclusion of the strategic plan. We revealed a one-page information synopsis to that group. And the full strategic plan will be approved by town council or voted on by town council, hopefully in November. So until that time, it will remain among the FDPC. So we're here today for the FDPC to vote to approve the strategic plan. Carolyn is here if anyone had any remaining questions. And same goes for you, Trish. I see Trish is here on Zoom. So if any members or Trish have questions about the strategic plan, now is the time. No questions?
I move that we approve the strategic plan for approval by council in November.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. And thank you to Carolyn for all of the hard work that she did.
well done. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, may I expound upon that, please?
Please did.
Mrs. Keller and Curio, 412 have done a spectacular job in guiding a very diverse group of people. And to, over a period of 5 meetings, being able to funnel down all the ideas from roughly 12 people to a workable solution for this organization over the next 3 to 5 years with Young's duty. I'd like to personally thank you because you got me to shut up long enough to actually get some things done. But furthermore, you know, I know that I've gotten some comments from the people in the community that have been involved, and it was a huge success. So thank you.
All right, landscaping update. A few weeks ago, Joe, myself, and my husband, and my 2 children redid the landscaping
Madam
outside.
Chairperson, you
Yeah.
missed one.
Did I?
2023 budget proposal.
Oh, yes, I did.
You can finish it, go back to it.
I'm looking at the old agenda meeting. Okay. That's more important than landscaping. So everyone was sent the budget proposal for 2023, which was due to Trisha Greathouse on Tuesday. At which point it will be reviewed with the new town manager when he begins at the end of the month. And then through that process, it will be reviewed and sent to town council in October. So does anyone have any questions about the budget that I sent to the FDPC?
The only question I had, I know we were keeping it kind of general because you were putting sort of but with the grants, have we,
We've begun the process.
okay, because Carolyn's often said it's really hard to get grants. And that was the
I think I
major
can-
source of revenue.
I could speak a little further on that. Is that we've been meeting with some philanthropic organizations and some foundations. And we believe that with a large degree of optimism, that number is very, very, very attainable.
Okay.
Should we vote to approve this budget?
I so
proposal?
move, I move that we approve the 2023 budget proposal and send it to council for adoption.
Second motion.
All in favor?
I,
Okay, so back to landscaping. We had, how many yards of mulch did we lay down?
8,
8 yards of mulch. Lots of weed whacking, lots of grass cutting, weed pulling, so I think it looks fantastic. Joe has loaned us some lights to light up the side of the Heritage Center and the sign that we have left from the golf outing. So I think looks really nice and something to be very proud of. Past events in August, we had National Night Out at the beginning of the month. It was fantastic for our visibility. We had a booth down in where the police had their booth, the town had booths, and then there were some vendors as well. We did a raffle for kids with a duck pond, and that evening we also had a lottery tree raffle. We raised $266 for the Heritage Center that evening, and we had about 30 visitors to the Heritage Center. At the Heritage Center, we had the library loaned a story walk with some police about a police story. So it was a nice family night for kids, and it was a great opportunity for us to speak to those families and tell them about the Heritage Center. So we'll be doing the
Madam
same setup.
Chairperson, I'd like to also expound on the fact that Mrs. Clunan and her daughter were very helpful
Mhm.
over at town council or over at town hall, here at town hall, as we had 2 different areas set up. In fact, Mrs. Clinton's daughter was very popular in her selling of the rubber ducks. So, Mrs. Clinton, please extend to your daughter our thanks.
Our upcoming events this Saturday, the class of 1977 will be coming for as a part of their class reunion festivities. The Heritage Center will be open our regular hours from 1 to 4. And they don't have a particular time that they're meant to stop by or a guided tour planned, but it's more meant to be an open house. But I made a informational flyer about the Westview Park exhibition, and we've been working to put up a lot of our NA memorabilia. So that's finalized. I finished that today. So we've got lots of NA, the tiger head, the major ed outfit, that sort of thing, the yearbooks out for those alumni to come on Saturday. September 10th already is Community Day, less than a month away. So there's one more Community Day planning meeting. I don't think it's this Monday, but maybe the next. And our setup will be similar to that of National Night Out, where we're going to have a booth and the town hall parking lot, and then the Heritage Center will be open with its own activities going on at the top of the hill. So more information on that to come, but we'll definitely need help that day for both
I have a
locations.
question about community day.
Okay.
With regards to that, there are 2 different events going on that particular day. One is a car cruise
Mhm.
at the intermediate high school from, I believe it's from 12 until 4.
Okay.
Has anything changed, or are we still manning that car cruise with a food booth?
I have not heard anything. I can follow up with Libby.
I would appreciate that because,
Mhm.
we made preliminary arrangements with Mr. Marshall from John Marshall Catering to borrow a steamer and we made arrangements with Sheets and Sam's Club to have them donate the hot dogs and have them donate the drinks and the chips. So that could be nothing but a pure profit day for us,
Mhm.
depending on how we approach it.
Okay. I'll
You
follow
mean
up.
that would be at the car cruise?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
with the heritage name on it? Is that
Yes.
what? Okay,
But Libby did mention there was a potential conflict with the activities.
She
Yeah, so
did,
that
but
just
she
needs to be
was-
resolved.
The last that I heard, Kevin, was that she was going to reach out and tell the person from the activities committee that we were going to have a booth. I just don't know that that happened,
Okay.
so.
September 24th, class of 1971 and 1972 will be coming, so I'll keep that NA display up until then, and the Westview memorabilia will be up until the end of September as well. September 29th, we went ahead and asked Scott Becker from the PA Trolley Museum to do 2 presentations because it's been popular. He did a similar presentation at the library, Amy, I know you know this, a number of years ago, and I think he said there were like 75 people there. So, yeah, I anticipate that this will be a popular one too, so I sent out the information to all the volunteers today about that event. And John made registrations and it's now live online. You can register for 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And I'll need a couple of volunteers for each session to help as well. It looks like Trish Clunan wrote, I believe Trisha was going to cancel the other hot dog truck. Okay, I'll follow up with Libby and Trisha tomorrow.
Yeah, I need to know that as soon as possible.
Okay. Okay, looking ahead to October 7th, I also printed out information to start advertising for the golf outing. And I've been working with 2 members of the Friends of North Park, Mary Pager and Karen Ridings Loster. And they've been helping me kind of understand what the best way to set up this display is and sort of help curate the photographs that have been submitted. So I asked for submissions from the photographers and we'll do a selection September 1st. So we've had a wonderful response from the Friends of North Park. And so I think it's going to be really nice, but there is a lot of work to do. So if anyone would like to help me coordinate that, that would be fantastic.
what date are these photographs going to be put out?
So they're going to be on display in October and November. So October 1st will be the first day that they are on view. And then the event will be October 8th. And then they'll be up and available for sale until the end of November.
Madam Chairperson.
Yeah.
I'd like to find out. Are they submitting the pictures to you in a particular form and we are getting them printed or
No.
are they getting them printed?
They're getting them printed. And Mary and Karen have helped me sort of formulate how we can clearly state our needs to them. So all we have to do is kind of receive the photographs and then we'll set them up ourselves. But
Okay,
And they will expect to sell their photos there?
yes, so we can't sell them for them. So
Right.
all sales will have to go through the artist and then a percentage of the sales will come back to us as a donation for showing to show their work, but all of those details are still in flux, so I don't want to say too much.
and we are selling tickets to this and that, correct?
Yes,
$25, is that correct?
we haven't set a price yet, but that sounds about reasonable.
I would believe that that's reasonable. We've had donations from Frank Fuhrer and from Margolis and Cognac Lake Wineries.
Okay.
We've had cheese donations from Pennsylvania Macaroni in the Strip District and from BJ's.
Okay.
So we can dub it as a wine and cheese party.
Mhm.
I don't know how long this is going to be, probably 2 hours or
Mhm.
so.
Mhm.
We might even want to push it to 3.
I was hoping to do a Chinese auction too and have some of the photographers raffle off their photographs. They said that would be a popular idea if you have each of the photographers who were selected to donate one to raffle off, and then they can sign their photograph for the person who won it. So, that being said, the question was, what do you get for $25? Do you just get wine and cheese? Or do you get like a raffle ticket or a drink ticket? So again, all of these details are spinning in my head, but we need to-
run it up against it.
yes, we are.
I mean, as far as the golf fund is concerned, we are starting to contact all the sponsors again.
Mhm.
Nobody's saying no. As a
Great.
matter of fact, Slovak Savings Bank has agreed to underwrite the golfing portion of it, so they're going to pay for the golf course, which is a huge expense in what we pay for. So already we're starting to see like a huge benefit, from their sponsorship.
Okay. Sure.
Yes.
As sponsorships are coming in. How are our checks, are they being told how to write their checks?
Yeah, it's been written to the town of McCandless. And I've worked with John, we did this for the first golf outing. I understand that, we've sat with Tricia Greenhouse and with John. And it's been explained to us in the past. There really wasn't enough money to try and keep track of anything. Okay, well, now we're getting into unfamiliar territory, so that's where Dan comes in.
We needed to have not only town of McCandless, but it needs to be marked as a restricted expense for the Heritage Center, or also just move into the generalized. So I wanted to make sure that that was.
John, you want to answer that? We have to do that for the,
Yeah, bear in mind, I'm not numbers for finance person, but basically what it is the town has one big account. But on paper, everything's numbered for certain things, certain donations, certain expenditures. So if a check comes in for a donation to the Heritage Center, I give it to finance and I let them know that this is Heritage Center money essentially. And they mark it down on paper. That's how they can track, how much we spent and how much we earned.
so I mean, that's just how we did it for the first one. I have neophyte knowledge of, their accounting system here, so.
Amy recommended us to participate in the historic Pittsburgh Fair, so thank you, Amy, for sending that information along. It's sponsored by the Carnegie Libraries of Pittsburgh. I'm actually going to be on vacation that day, so Dan said that he would be glad to go down to Oakland and have a table, hopefully side by side or nearby Northland. So more information on that to come. And then Kevin, Diane and Joe and I will be meeting at the lodge at North Park tomorrow morning to go over the setup for Notorious North Hills, which is scheduled for October 27th. So that's just a look ahead. Outreach progress. I have scheduled 2 or 3 outreach groups to come in September. At $50 a piece. I have one outreach that I'm going to speak and do a presentation at La Roche for the AAUW in September for a $50 donation. And the group from Anthology, I believe it is going to come in October. And I'm going to go there in October, again at $50 each way. And I just followed up with, I feel badly. I keep like hounding these people. I call them once a week. And then hopefully they call me back. But I got a couple more emails. I just saw that people are ready to make reservations for October for a guided tour of the Heritage Center, again at a $50 donation. So that's going well.
You want to discuss the development of proposal for North Allegheny?
Sure. I called and left a message to Dr. Dowell today. And waiting on a call back. I also reached out to the secondary education superintendent at North Allegheny to see
Dr.
if,
Shula.
yes, to see if some of the high school groups or clubs, how we can get in touch. I know Kevin had mentioned during the strategic planning, one of the strategic planning sessions that, to get even FaceTime during an in-service with the teachers. That would be beneficial because some of the teachers could say, go to the Heritage Center for extra credit or, so it's just raising awareness within the school district there too. So we also need to get yearbooks from 2017 to current. So.
Might also find people that might want to volunteer with us.
Exactly, yeah, for senior projects, other service hours that they may need, because we certainly need some weekend help. And yeah, some evening help too. Joe and I talked yesterday. It'd be really nice to get some high school kids in who can come after school and maybe 1 or 2 days a week, we can be open until 7 o'clock.
Hmm.
So that would be.
We
that
have
would be
talked
nice.
about a junior dosage program.
Yeah,
Working with the high schools. And right now it's North Allegheny, but hopefully that can expand to be, in Richland or Hampton or whatever.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of kids that are interested in history and museum management coming out of high school. So we have to tap into that group.
I also put out a call today to Northern Connection, to Swanson Publishing, to have, some sort of article reestablished in one of the local free publications. Whether that be on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis, I don't know, but waiting on a call back from them as well. So any other old business notes, questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay. Under new business, Joe, would you like to explain number 7?
Yeah, over the course of the last 5 years, our demographics in our area have changed dramatically. During the last 6 months, we've had discussions with different philanthropic and foundation organizations. As during our strategic planning sessions, we've wanted to be more appealing as a regional asset. That being said, the mission and the vision statements that we've displayed indicate that we need to broaden our horizons a little bit, and this has been discussed. It was actually Mrs. Clennan's original idea, and I wholeheartly support it. What I am proposing today to this group is a name change from the from McCandless Northern Allegheny Heritage Center to the McCandless Northern Allegheny Heritage and Cultural Center. There are far more people of diversity in our service area than have ever been before. I believe that non-white is now at 40%. That being said, we need to broaden our horizons and be welcoming to other nationalities, other cultures. And by calling it a cultural center as well as a heritage center, we make ourselves more appealing to those philanthropic organizations that are willing to provide granting monies over the long haul. So with that being said, I formally, in front of everybody here, move and urge that we adopt, or that we ask council to alter the ordinance from 2017 to revise the name of the center to read McCandless Northern Allegheny Heritage and Cultural Center. Thank you.
I'll second.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
When Abby, when you and I talked about this, I think it was after you suggested it, you were saying that are there any requirements if you call yourself a cultural center
Good question.
legally, or just ethically in terms of programming or mission? Or is it just a name change? I'm just wondering if,
Well, you know,
do we have to reflect it in our mission, our programming? What, I think it's a good idea. I'm just wondering, what does that mean rather than just adding 2 words?
it changes how we curate. It changes, it actually broadens how we curate. It broadens our programming. It broadens the different nationalities and the different cultural groups that we serve now. Okay,
Can you give me an example? Like if right now we've always been focused on history programming or connection with history. When you say cultural, what type of programming do you offer in addition?
you know, that's a great question. And probably the best way that I could answer that is by saying to be determined based upon the cultures that are now within our communities. I mean, I can't answer that specifically right now, but I can tell you that a cultural center is more welcoming.
Well, give me an example of when you say cultural center. What in your mind, what is one that
I'll
we
give
can
you-
look to as
I've
a,
got an example. I've got an example, Howland Cultural Center in New York. It was once a subscription library, became a free library. It outgrew its building, and then they changed it recently into what they call a cultural center, and it allows for some of what Joe's talking about. It also opens it up to art
Performance.
and performance, crafts and things like that. So, somebody talked about having the gardening club, right? Which, as you talk about, we've been more focused on history. And that's really what I'm focused on. And, but I understand, I think it'd be great to have the garden club in there. And I think if we change it to, I think that there is a good argument for maybe putting the cultural in there, because we could incorporate things like that. We could, that we could do it without the name too. We could just do it. But I think it might be more welcome. I'm not totally sold on the idea that it'd be more welcome, but maybe it will. Because I just don't know.
I think it would be more inclusive.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that it is more appealing to funding organizations.
But I know that I do know that the term heritage does have some negative connotations and
Yes.
baggage to it. It struck me the very first time I came to the Heritage Center, that word has a lot of, if you're into history and whatnot, it has a lot of negative connotations.
It actually pigeonholes. The term heritage pigeonholes basically who you are.
In some,
And it's not a positive
and
term.
it's been used by, I'll just say it right, it's been used by neo-Confederates to
Yes.
talk about their ideology. So
well, I mean, it's a word. It's whenever you group it with other words that it becomes controversial. I don't think heritage in itself is a
I understand.
negative word.
We're talking about sending signals to people. And I'll tell you right now, when I saw that word in there, this is very much an area that I have a lot of expertise in. And that word stuck out at me when I first saw it, and it had to be explained that, and I think it's great that the state of Pennsylvania puts, big qualifications on using the term history in the history center or history museum. That's great. That's a good thing. We don't want anybody just throwing out the history center. So now I sort of understood why it's Heritage Center. I think maybe changing it to cultural, incorporating.
But
culture.
when heritage and culture together, because I know you're an expert in this, and
Well,
I'm just trying to understand it. It becomes stronger because it doesn't, like you say, become more pigeonholed.
yeah,
It becomes more broader or more
Yes,
inclusive in
more
terms of.
inclusive.
Let me ask one question. Will this one change and I don't believe it will, our mission statement?
No,
no,
Okay.
not at all.
Well, we try and keep history instead of heritage, still trying to keep history at the center of
Hope so.
what we do.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
rather than becoming,
But this
a-
broadens our capability of offering. If we want to have a dance troupe come in, or if we want to have a Gaelic football offering. It's part of history, but it's also a cultural thing. So, there are a lot of different nationalities, and there are a lot of different cultural ethnicities here in Western Pennsylvania. By making it a cultural center, we're actually making, I believe we're making this more welcoming. We're making this more inclusive. We're opening the doors to more people.
I share something, I mean, I share some of the same sort of.
Well,
I
I would
concerned.
just guess if you're gonna go to council, they're gonna have some of the same questions we have. And if you say to be determined, I don't know if I was on council, if I'd like to understand the rationale for it and what it
Well, I've
means.
explained it to certain members of council and they're all for it.
Okay.
Because it is more inclusive and because it actually helps us achieve more of our actual mission from council. Number one is to get more people through the door. And number two is to raise additional funding. It just makes it easier. You can call it tomato, you can call it tomato, but essentially it operates the same way. It operates with the guidance of this group. And
So you're thinking of asking different ethnicities to maybe come in and do programming.
and participate.
Yeah.
Because if you look at our demographics, 5 years ago, we had less than 20% were non-white. Okay, we're almost at 40%. And it's going to get bigger. Okay, so I think especially now when we are at this crossroads where we're trying to gain more credibility on a larger scale, when we're trying to gain more credibility with philanthropic and funding organizations who readily accept on a much larger scale, both heritage and cultural centers. I urge you to do this now. And I don't think that we're going to get pushback from town council.
Well, like I said, I'm just asking a question. And
There is a motion on the
if you
table.
plowed the road already, that's fine. And I mean, I don't see a downside to it other than if we're, when you're a heritage center, you are under other restrictions or anything like that, or, but, I can certainly see where it's just
Well, the
fundable.
reason,
It's whatever it is, whatever you want to call yourself is
the
what you.
reason that we're a heritage center and not a history center is because we tried to avoid as I understand it, we tried to avoid the requirements of a history center.
Okay, so there was a conscious choice not to say history
Right.
way back when.
Right.
And heritage became the more general term, and it becomes stronger if you're heritage and cultural.
Yes.
From certain foundations for funding because. they
Oh,
perceive it as
absolutely.
certain- Okay.
You look at the August Wilson Center, that's a cultural center.
Yeah.
Okay. And it takes in many different cultures. It's not just African-American culture. It takes in many different cultures from across the region. Okay. I'd like to see us do the same thing.
I do think we need to check in to make sure that there aren't any sort of
Yeah,
expectations.
I wouldn't think there would be, but there could be
Yeah.
expectations from
We've
the foundations, like, oh,
No,
you're a culture center, and give
we've
us
actually
what's the
done
programming
our-
you're doing culturally. Yeah.
We've done our due diligence there,
Okay.
and there are no, the term cultural is just more inclusive.
Okay.
That's what we've learned.
Then just look at, well, I just would also like to discuss, putting that word in there, it makes it even more of a mouthful. So
Yeah.
that's just something I think we should have to discuss.
Okay, well-
Do we?
I think if we look further on down the line,
Mhm.
okay, and let's be frank here.
Yeah.
We've had discussions not only with philanthropic organizations, but we've had discussions in very preliminary form with other municipalities and other historical organizations across the region. This may not be the last name change that we asked for. Okay, and you know what? I understand, calling it the McCandless History and Cultural Center, serving the northern Allegheny region. I get it. I don't care either way. But, if we call it McCandless, when we go out to talk to these other municipalities, instead of calling it Northern Allegheny, it makes the sale a little bit tougher. And we are beginning those discussions. I want to be totally upfront with this group.
Do you think town council would accept the Northern Allegheny Heritage and Cultural Center?
And the building.
Well, I mean. if
We
you-
can request whatever we want. Mrs. Clinton can tell you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You got to have
Yeah.
both of them there, even if it's a mouthful, it may transition to something else. I think they both serve a purpose in the name. We had
I
talked about,
think while we're paying the bills,
yeah, exactly. If
Right.
McCandless taxpayers are paying the bills,
Right,
they probably want the name there. So,
But I want to be perfectly clear with this group. That we are starting very preliminary discussions with other historical societies and other municipalities. And the goal is, at least in a loose fashion, is to get agreement from across the region on participation. And, Amy's done a great job. Diane's done a great job as far as plowing the way for that on a subscription basis from across municipalities.
yeah, you mentioned that last week.
We had a meeting yesterday with Pine, and they were actually excited at the prospect. We've had conversations with, the council president at Ross. They're excited at the prospect. We've had conversations with the mayor over in Franklin Park. I mean, we are going to continue to have these discussions. Again, they're going to be preliminary in nature. I would never do anything outside of this group unless I was charged to do so. That's why I wanted to bring this to you now.
So if I'm hearing you right, that adding the cultural part now creates one opportunity for funding.
Yes,
Okay, that's sort of step one. And then there may be, if one of our goals, our strategic goals was for growth in terms of regionally, then they may change again to,
it could.
to be more inclusive of a broader geographic area.
I think to
But it's
Mrs.
progressive
Clinton, I
here.
think to Mrs. Clinton's point, if we come up with a way to share the responsibility amongst municipalities.
Yeah.
That's a win-win for everybody.
Or to broaden the resources or pool resources.
Absolutely. And you know what, we've had, yesterday, Abby and I went over to Pine Township and we saw the stuff on Jonas Salk where he lived and everything. We have the Historical Society at Franklin Park. It's actually been defunct for 20 years. Okay, they did their sesquicentennial book and then that was it. But there are a lot of artifacts in the basement of their town hall that we've been told, have at it. Okay. We made
Careful what you wish for.
contacts. At first night, we made contact with a very important contact, I would think, Abby, in Lynn Evans, who is the liaison for all of the people in Ben Avon, all the historical centers in Ben Avon, Ohio Township, Avalon, and Emsworth.
Yeah.
This is a big deal.
No, that it is. That's why I think. it's worth
We've
talking
had
about.
preliminary discussions with a town council member over in Hampton. They have a historical society that includes the Odd Fellows. They have nowhere to put their stuff. They have nowhere to display their stuff.
And we have the expertise.
We do. We have
You
the
know,
expertise.
We're the only one who actually.
And we're
something
the
to find.
only ones that have a facility.
Yeah, that's the key.
And we, where others may have academic or athletic fields or something, that we haven't developed expertise in this sort of
Yeah.
heritage and cultural concept that we can share with other communities in our,
It's a unique
in our
offering.
region. Yeah.
I mean, the first example of that is the Borough of Westview and how they've given us those yearbooks.
Yeah.
And other documents too. So speaking of that, I talked to Natalie Benevia at the North Allegheny Journal about that relationship and about the growth of the Heritage Center this year. So there'll be an article coming out.
I mean, we have a motion on the table about
Okay,
the name
sorry.
change.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm much more
I'll
comfortable saying yes.
second it again.
Well, normally,
Second,
Rob,
second.
okay,
Yeah, yeah.
you-
All right.
so until somebody calls the
We have
question,
a
are
second.
you gonna call the question or? Usually you do debate these things, then somebody
Can I
calls. the
just, may I please just add a point, if that's okay? One of the reasons to add to the discussion that's already at hand, that I like the idea of adding cultural to the name, is because I want to, my goal for the center is to make it a more of a living entity. You know, for a lot of people that I've spoken to, and I'm guilty of it myself, my thought of what the Heritage Center was before now was a place for white people that went to NA, and that was it. And that's with a lot of the artifacts and the focus has been until now. And I think by adding cultural, you start to say, you know what, there are more people that have contributed to this community that we need to highlight and celebrate and things like that, that it's a living, history is living. And that's where my idea of focusing on bringing the cultural and more engaging more of our community. And maybe this might allow that and encourage it.
Thank you,
Nothing
Jeff.
wrong there.
And so it would be McCandless, Northern Allegheny, Heritage and Cultural Center.
Yes.
Actually, it's not too bad.
It's a little more balanced than the
You
old.
say, yeah, actually, you know, yeah, kind of, it almost balances it out.
Yeah,
so,
there's as many words on the descriptor as there, or. you know,
Oh,
it's-
yeah,
it is
no, I
more
like it, I
balanced.
like it. Yeah,
And you
like
know
that.
what? I apologize if I didn't do a good enough job of explaining the whys and the wherefores. You guys know my passion is for this place.
Yeah.
You also know that, you know, while I don't know squat about museum operations, I certainly know a lot about outreach.
Mm.
And I know a lot about raising money. This is one thing that is going to make us look forward thinking. It's going to make us look inclusive. And it's going to give us a new vision as far as curation and as far as inclusion with our different programs.
Call the question. Does everybody want to vote on the question?
I,
Say aye if you do. If you want to vote on the question, you say aye. So
All
I
right.
call the question.
I
You can ask
made,
us.
I made, we have a motion on the table.
Right, well,
To accept,
we've been debating.
okay. So I'll call the question.
You okay? Yeah. So you want to ask if we're done with debate? You want to put-
Are we done with debate?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Now we'll vote on the motion.
okay. So vote on the motion to propose to town council for their approval of a name change to the McCandless Northern Allegheny Heritage and Cultural Center.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. And I appreciate all of your input on that.
Well-
I can tell that you guys care a lot.
It's good we had that conversation.
Mhm.
Not, because we're all on the same page without, no one's questioning
Mhm.
questioning what we want.
And I gotta tell you something, Don. Throughout this, my term on this board, that's the one thing I appreciate is we manage to get on the same page. Whether it be here or whether it be in discussion. Whether it be strategic plan, whether it be, you know, the fundraising, whatever we've been doing. We all manage to get on the same page, and that's encouraging for any public board.
Okay, open and miscellaneous topics? Anyone have anything? No?
No.
Public comment?
Anyone, comment about the municipality conversations? I know you're in preliminary explorative phase. I would also recommend talking to Amy Steele and Diane, just to get their background on those agreements and some of the things that they've learned, because they have been in it for a long time, as like you said, they paid the way and know what those agreements look like and relationships look like, and that will provide valuable input into this group's decision.
To your point, Carolyn, we have had discussions. You're right, it deserves further discussion with Amy and with Diane. I will assure you, though, that we've had process discussions with the solicitor of the town. And we know what needs to be done. Learning the nuances, Amy, of those relationships, and perhaps how we can help the libraries moving forward as well.
Yeah, I think that's important that this always be seen as something collaborative with the libraries, that we don't step on each other's toes, either by programming or fundraising, that the lines of communication between the entities stay wide
Any
open.
discussions that we've had, Kevin, like with Johnny Patsko over at Pine yesterday, has to do with additional funding outside of the libraries.
Okay.
We're not. Ultimately, it could come down to some sort of competition, but I don't see it that way. I think that most of the municipalities have healthy parks and recreation departments. And they're willing to find money outside of what is funding the libraries in order to make this happen.
So the approach would be much more like not trying to chop up the pie into more pieces,
No.
but just get a bigger pie,
No.
more pies.
More Plugging the 80, 90, it's part of it is you don't want to be in competition, but more so your group is charged with the responsibility for doing what's best for the organization.
Mhm.
In order to do that, you need to make an informed decision based on the pros and the cons and
Yeah.
what's going to be the best vehicle to move the Heritage Center forward. So that's my only recommendation is make sure you're getting all sides of that story and so you're making the best decision possible.
I agree with that, but I also see us as, when we're talking about regional assets and having relationships with other entities, Ross, Pine, whatever, that we all make sure that these are collaborative and not, if there are limited resources, that we discuss these things, that we're not like, I think, Joe, what encourages me is whenever you're talking about foundations and stuff like that, who maybe have never given to anything in this area because there's new possibilities for things. So it's not taking money away from someone else. It's feeding other initiatives in the larger, broader
And-
mission for the region.
And
That
not
appeals.
just that, but a lot of these philanthropic organizations have never been asked.
So
Okay, so we are approaching it in a fresh fashion. The other thing that I want to bring up to this board is, the American Rescue Plan monies. And I was told by the interim town manager that, that the town gets an allotment and that's it. Well, there are several buckets because I was actually on one of the planning teams for the American Rescue Plan. There's a shuttered venue bucket of money that has nothing to do with municipal funds. There is library and museum monies that are separate yet from the municipalities. So, I don't know that we qualify for the museum monies, but certainly the shuttered venues. We were shuttered for 18 months. And that money's available until the end of 2023. So I'm going to get all the information that I can. I will distribute it as quickly as I can from my contact at the Treasury. So we may have to call an emergency meeting to move forward. But I think it's money that we need to go after because, basically what it is, it's monies that you could have, money that you potentially lost during being shuttered. Okay. And it's based in large part on your geography, your your census of your area. And right now, that means McCandless. So,
Yeah. That makes sense.
Anything else?
are there any action items, Madam Chairperson, for the things that are coming up? Is there anything that we have to address immediately prior to our next meeting in September?
John, would you be able to put the proposal to town council on Monday's agenda meeting? Okay, that would be it.
Okay, what about volunteers for, I mean, we need volunteers for the golf outing. That's on a Friday morning. We need volunteers for the Friends of North Park. Okay. There's a lot of things that we need to do.
Mhm.
Kevin, do you have an idea of how you and Diane want to approach the notorious North Hills?
I
as
think
far as
tomorrow when
food?
we look at the venue and because we did that, we went there last year to the lodge, and looked at different spaces. I think it'll be good to have the two of you there because we can sort of bounce off how big do we think this could be, or because there's a lot of different options there.
You guys need to decide as far as food, what you want to.
Yeah, that's kind of, and I think you'll see tomorrow that there are different ways it could be done. We did it at the Rose Barn last time. It was more smaller, more intimate. It was bigger than for many things that we did, but I guess, Joe, your approach seems to be go big or go home. So let's look tomorrow with a fresh eye.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that.
I'm just
But-
saying, no, I
but
mean,
if
I
you
think
want-
tomorrow, having the two of you there with Diane and I, and we can say, this is what we thought about last year. What do you guys think? I think it'd be good to look at it with a fresh eye tomorrow and see what's possible. And she's already reached out with some additional content and thoughts that she's been working on. And so we have to get together and talk about the program and maybe how long, everything like that. So again, I think it could be a great event again, but it'll be nice to have some other.
Are you
Well,
aware,
that's like-
are you aware if they have an internet hub over at the lodge?
I have heard because with it being a wedding location now, you have to have that kind of stuff. And the Rose Barn didn't have a lot of stuff from what I understand. I think
Because
the lodge is
that makes the projection
yeah,
a lot easier.
yeah, exactly. We were doing the best we could last time.
Right.
And it worked really well. I mean, we did the best, but there's options if depending on where you're going to have people sit for the actual presentation, where they would eat, whether you there's different ways that we could treat this and it'll be really, self-evident tomorrow whenever we're actually there and looking at things.
It's gonna depend on how many tickets we sell.
Exactly. And how close I'm glad that we're kind of, far enough away from the golf outing because there's always that sort of fundraising fatigue that can happen. Of too many things too close together, sometimes for the same organization. So we can chat about that as well, because it's
I'm excited. This
Might
will
be-
be my first one. I'm excited at the prospect. And I'm also.
Can I ask a
excited to-
question?
sure.
Pardon. What concerns me is the number of volunteers that will be available. I was part of that last year and it was very successful, but we definitely needed more people. And I think Diane has planned to do the food differently than we did last year, but I think we need to do something to see if we can get some of the volunteers on our list, that are not just these people, because we need the help. It
Suzanne,
was a big job.
can you identify yourself for the record?
I'm sorry, this is Suzanne Schnapp.
Thank you. And Amy, you had your hand up as well.
Did you?
David?
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. Yeah, this is Amy Steele from Northland. Yeah, I just wanted to remind Kevin, we'll want to make sure as we get closer that we do test out the technology. I remember making some frantic trips back and forth to try and get alternate projectors. We had a Mac versus PC thing going on, so we just want to make sure that we are, well prepared with that. I do have a hotspot here at the library if internet is necessary, that we can bring that and use it, but we'll just make sure that we build a test run on the technology into that, which I think you did the last time. I think there was some weirdness that went on, but I know it was a little frantic for about an hour or so.
It worked out. There were, like you said, there were some
Yes.
compatibility
And
issues. and-
we have some new equipment. I mean, we have 2 projectors, we have 2 screens. We have a splitter that we can have a video projection in 2 different areas at the same time. The only reason I asked about the hotspot is if we did something via Zoom where we can share a screen between 2 different places, we could actually do a Zoom broadcast. So, I mean, I'm pretty confident that we'll have exactly what we need, and certainly between you and I, Kevin, we'll be able to figure that out.
Yeah, it's simply basically projecting a PowerPoint at like a
Yeah.
very large power, try and make it as big as possible and have with live voice. and
Well,
music. So it was,
If
we'll work
if we're
out.
at the lodge, we might be able to do it on 2 different floors.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. It's a completely different venue.
And you know what? You're right. Yeah, I think if I'm always thinking go big or go home, but the bottom line is if we're doing events for this, they have to be notable.
Well, this was, we years ago, we tried to, and it was 3 years ago that we did this now. We kind of saw, that as the first gala or yearly fundraising kind of event. And it was very successful at the time for what it was. And, I think it captured that spirit that we wanted to at that time. It was.
So this
it
was your
best attended,
snowflake dance.
Yeah, well, but it was, again, it
Oh,
was
come on, that was
history
funny.
focused. So.
You guys didn't even get that. That was funny. They say when you have to tell somebody it's funny, it's really not funny.
These days, you can't.
Okay.
All right, so we can chat about that
Yeah.
more tomorrow.
Does anyone else have anything?
I just want to thank everybody. I realize that change is never easy. But change in a historical situation or museum situation is absolutely vital to survival. We have to find different ways to reinvent ourselves. So I want to thank this group for approving the name change to go to council. I feel pretty confident that this group has proven itself to get the support from council that it needs in this regard. Thank you.
I want to thank Carolyn again, and you thanked her already. Great work with the strategic planning and everybody else. It was really great. A great session, great sessions and great ideas.
Amy, I'd like to set up a time to meet with you and to pick your brain a little bit on how to avoid the landmines moving forward. Because, you know me well enough to know we're going to move forward. I just want to do it the right way.
Is there a motion?
Sure, Joe, just email me and we'll set something up. I may be in and out a little bit in the coming weeks. I'm waiting to be grandma for the second time, and I am on babysitting duty for Big Brother once that event happens. So I'm a little
You're in-
tentative for the next 3 or 4 weeks, but I just don't know when the
I
little guy's
actually-
gonna show up, but.
I actually don't want to wait that long. If you had time tomorrow or Friday, I would make myself available to come to Northland.
You could be in your office in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Quickly, lock the door.
Yeah.
All right, I'll look at my schedule and I'll email you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
5:28, I motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi,
I,
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
you mentioned Dennis though, too.